Alright people, welcome back to VHS Crazy. Today we're talking about the Ritchie Valens rock biopic La Bamba. It's pretty good. I know La Bamba sounds kind of like John Leguizamo, but don't get them mixed up. They're two very different things. Let's get right into it with La Bamba.
Hello, popcorn delivery.
Put a little weekend in your week. Rent a video.
One of the most interesting VHS cases I got, because instead of the VHS tape slipping out down here, instead it's got a little flap on the side that you could just like slide the tape out of. The case is empty right now, but because it's still in the VHS player, but it's just an interesting case. I don't know if I've seen another case like this. I don't know. It's a weird kind of case with like a side flap to like open up. It kind of makes it easier to hold a VHS, because there's been plenty of times where like I'm at the thrift store and I'm getting a bunch of VHS tapes, and I'm trying to hold all of them, and they're coming right out the bottom, like they're slipping right out. So this way it's a little more secure, easier to hold a bunch of VHS tapes at one time with this design. Heck, I kind of like it, but who knows. Anyway, La Bamba, just a very gosh darn interesting movie. Not the best movie. It has its here and there spots of like what, but it has been added to the Library of Congress's National Film Registry as aesthetically or culturally significant. So it's got something going for it. And I'd say it deserves that distinction because I think Ritchie Valens is a legitimately fascinating figure in the history of rock. He was the first rock superstar that was pretty much Hispanic. Not, of course, in Latin America. There are obviously lots of Latin rock bands in Latin America, like the Teen Tops and stuff, but they never get their own rock biopic in America, anyway. But yeah, Ritchie Valens, obviously, excellent musician, an absolute icon for Hispanic, communities everywhere. He was the Elvis of the Hispanic rock world, and this biopic attempts to capture this kind of, clashing between the Hispanic migrant farm worker camps and the nice idyllic 1950s sugar pops and gumdrops type lifestyle. And it does it okay. I don't think that the movie really criticizes, just the amount of like racism that Hispanic fellows back in the 50s would face. At the same time, it's just trying to be a fun rock and roll movie, so what you gonna do? Also, the idea is that Ritchie kind of rises to the top of rock stardom because he's just so dang good, so it doesn't bring his ethnicity that much into it, which honestly I kind of admire. But there it is established that his girlfriend's father is a big racist, and
I hate Dad when he acts like that.
and he has to pretend like he's white, and also it establishes that he has to change his last name from Valenzuela to just Valens, and also he has to put a T in his name from like just Ritchie to like Ritchie, and I don't know how that's a more white spelling of Ritchie. I think without a T it's equally like race neutral, but I guess that just makes it sound more upper class or something. Again, I don't really get why anyone would persuade Ritchie Valens to make his name more white, because he's obviously Hispanic, and his most famous song, like the only song he's really known for, like the song that cemented him in rock history, is entirely in Spanish. So there's that. Like, I'm not really fooling anyone here. This movie has a lot of the conventional tropes, I'd say, of a rock biopic. I saw Bohemian Rhapsody in theaters when it came out, and I can say that, since the 80s when this was made, there really haven't been that many changes made to the standard formula of any given rock biopic, the big success story. You've got the scene with the first gig that doesn't quite work out. You've got the big roaring climax where they play the big hit chart-topping big-time single, and you have the you know, the bit where the agent picks him up and they're like, yeah, I'm scouting out here for some talent, and this looks like some big talent. So, I mean, yeah, obviously the staples of the average rock biopic are all very much present here, not much deviation from, you know, the standard formula. And you have to wonder what a rock biopic about, like, an experimental group like Mr. Bungle or something would be like. Probably pretty different from the Ritchie Valens story, I'd say. The description here is kind of faded because it's kind of like, it's kind of torn off. I don't know what caused that, but it says, the man, the myth, and the music that brought America to its feet and catapulted 17-year-old Ritchie Valens to rock and roll stardom lives again in La Bamba, a Mexican-American farm laborer obsessed with music and full of dreams. Ritchie, Lou Diamond Phillips, is catapulted into the world of 1950s rock with a string of chart-busting hits, climbing to the top with his girlfriend Donna. After that, it's hard to read, but it says eerie premonition, meteoric rise to the top. I don't know, it ruined the back of this case like this. Oh well. Anyway. And it says, obviously, there's a performance by Los Lobos at the end, which is pretty rad, because Los Lobos, you know, I mean, nothing's better than Ritchie Valens' original version of La Bamba. It's as good as, like, Eddie Cochran's Summertime Blues or something. It's a solid jam. But, you know, Los Lobos' version is also pretty gosh darn rocking, and they place that modern spin on it. You know, I'm not going to diss Los Lobos' cover of La Bamba, obviously. It's also iconic. But La Bamba, the movie, really is it has an interesting structure. It opens up with Santo and Johnny's Sleepwalk, which is an instrumental I like, don't get me wrong. But it depicts, you know, this basketball game in progress, and you're like, this is kind of weird and surreal. And then all of a sudden a big plane explodes in the sky, and it's all slow motion, it starts careening down. And this is the eerie premonition the case is describing. Obviously, this is a very clear reference, you know, right off the bat, in like the first minute that this is the day the music died, as Don McLean says in his song American Pie. Ritchie Valens, Buddy Holly, and the Big Bopper all going down in a giant rush, and they, you know, they've just boarded the plane. They think they're going to go and play a bunch of sold-out concerts, but instead they flip and crash and die. Just another testament to how unsafe air travel is, am I right? Anyway, so the movie opens up like that. Then we see Ritchie waking up from this terrifying dream of him literally dying in a plane crash. And he's like, that's weird. And for some reason he doesn't get that it's him in the plane. Then in the end, of course, he gets on the plane with Buddy Holly and the Big Bopper, and it's like, you're having all these premonitions, all these like eerily, uncannily accurate dreams about how you're gonna die in a plane crash, and then you get on a plane? Why'd you do that? You know, it just makes him seem kind of stupid, and I don't really like that. I think this movie easily could have done without the supernatural angle. We don't need to see Ritchie having all these weird psychic visions of him dying. You know, because then you just look stupid when he gets on the plane. It's like, why you get on the plane? Why? You know, you're literally being given your own fate to see that you're gonna die, and then you get on the plane. It just makes him look like, really dumb. And obviously, this isn't what actually happened in history. Nobody knew Buddy Holly and Ritchie Valens and the Big Bopper were going to flip and blow up and crash at like 20,000 feet. How do you predict something like that? It's a very random event. So, you know, I think they're going for like destiny, you know, this was his destiny the whole time, but it's just sad, and like, why you gotta make it look like he knew the whole time or something? He didn't. You can't predict tragedies like that, dying with Buddy Holly and the Big Bopper, you know. Nobody knows that's gonna happen. Like, come on. You know, but obviously it had to deal with the plane crash in some way, because, I mean, he died so young, the same with Buddy Holly and the Big Bopper. The biggest tragedy in rock music history. All three top quality just rock stars just getting blown out and flipping decimated, and Don McLean's like, dang, it's the three men I admire most, in his famous song American Pie, which is also seriously a hot jam. So yeah, obviously this had to cover it. And I remember seeing the Buddy Holly story. I think I also have it on VHS. And obviously in that, they also have to cover, Buddy Holly's going to die at the end because he's going to blow up on the plane. Obviously. It's hard to cover something like that when you also want to make a fun, rock and roll biopic. You don't really want to cover that they died so flippin' young and, they had their whole careers ahead of them. I mean, Buddy Holly, he had more chart-topping singles than Ritchie Valens, but Ritchie Valens is behind La Bamba, the flippin' jam. La Bamba is a flippin' hot single, so one only wonders what would have been like if Ritchie Valens hadn't died on the plane crash. What a gosh darn sad ending. But unfortunately, of course, this movie can't have anything but a sad ending, because that's how Ritchie Valens died. The movie also goes deep into Ritchie Valens' older brother, who's kind of a chauvinist and, is too horny for his own good and kind of a drunkard. And here we see, I think this is the thing that this biopic does the best, the dynamic is, washed up, and he feels like his younger brother, Ritchie, the clean-cut, all-American goody two-shoes, is kind of one-upping him. And he's like, I'm the older sibling, why aren't I getting all the big press and coverage and clout?
Bob, watch it! My guitar, man.
And that's kind of interesting to see the, sibling rivalry between the two. It really escalates. I think this movie would be pretty boring if it didn't lean that hard in on the sibling angle, the idea that Ritchie's brother is like really, kind of jealous, and he's kind of contemptuous, and he's kind of feeling like, man, my best years are behind me, and here my brother is selling out to the white music industry and pretending to be all white, and he's looking like Elvis up there. And that's just a very interesting angle that I really think is incorporated well. Obviously, Esai Morales, he does really good. In many ways, you kind of pay more attention to him than Ritchie, in many ways, because he's a more complex and deeply troubled character with a lot of internal baggage that he's trying to process. And meanwhile, his brother's just like, So I think this movie is interesting, and then it tries to address that. Ritchie Valens is signing all these record deals and getting all these hotshot hookups, and meanwhile his brother's like, dang, I gotta work 9 to 5 on the wage farm because I'm a Hispanic fellow in 1950s America and they're discriminatory against me. Lots of commentary like that. Like I said, this movie doesn't lean in too heavily on the racial element, but it is here and there in enough dosage to remind you that Ritchie Valens really had, that his luck was an unprecedented success, and that he had to overcome a lot of milestones in his struggle for equality and respect. But in the end, he earned it because he wrote flippin' La Bamba. Or maybe he didn't write it. I hear it's kind of based off a folk tune. But, La Bamba. What a classic flippin' rockin' out, top flippin' pop rocks, top of the charts, flippin' extravaganza. The fellow plays Ritchie in this, Lou Diamond Phillips, gives a really interesting portrayal of Ritchie Valens. He doesn't exactly look like Ritchie Valens from the covers of Ritchie Valens' records and whatnot, but he does give his best, and he is a commanding presence on stage. This is a portrayal to rival that of Freddie Mercury in Bohemian Rhapsody. It's a lot of glitz and glamour, and he really gets those notes just right. And Lou Diamond Phillips, obviously very well versed in how to kind of pull off those Ritchie Valens mannerisms, get him down pat. I think I think it's an okay portrayal. It's not like the best or anything, but it does capture that kind of raucous energy that really put the kick in the Valens tunes. Just really added to it quite a bit. Obviously, there are a lot of interesting scenes in this. There's the bit where Ritchie Valens has his entire backup band, the Silhouettes. And at first, they're like, the Hispanic guy, we're all white trust fund kids. Look at this failure coming to join us. But then it turns out that the leader of the Silhouettes sings like garbage, and they all just like oust him and make Ritchie the lead singer instead. And I think that's a funny scene. He really sings like really bad. It's pretty funny. I don't know, the guy was in real life, obviously. This biopic might, not do him justice, maybe, possibly. Maybe he wasn't such a racist or whatever, but this biopic really shits on him. Anyway, so Ritchie ascends to the leader of the Silhouettes, and then he does his act, Ritchie Valenzuela and his flying guitar. I don't know how accurate the posters that were made, especially for this biopic, are. They look okay, they look decent. I don't know how period accurate they are or whatever, but I thought that was kind of interesting that they tried exactly recreating the posters from this one event. Ritchie Valenzuela and his flying guitar, which happened quite a bit before La Bamba. So obviously they did a ton of research in preparation for this film, just to get every last little detail, correct in the Valens chronology. Then you see Valens drop the Silhouettes as his backup band because the agent comes along and he's a smarmy dude and he's like, "Hey Valens, you gotta drop the Silhouettes, man, because they're just dragging you down, and I'm offering you big time success." And Valens is like, "But they're my pals, they're my friends, they're my steadfast chums." And the agent is like, "Drop those Silhouettes, man. They're only doing you a mess of trouble in this, a competitive music world. You gotta think for yourself." And then after like a moment, like not even like 10 seconds of contemplation, Valens is just like, "Yeah, okay. I don't need my friends anymore to back me up on music or anything. I'll just be a solo musician." I don't even know how that works out, because La Bamba, dang, is that just Ritchie Valens by himself, just on guitar? Dang. What a talent. He doesn't even need a band to back him up, like, jeez. But, I think that's just that doesn't really make sense, because obviously the other Silhouettes are also talented, and you got like a drummer and a bassist, and the necessary components of a chart-topping band. So that's just kind of a bad choice. I think maybe Ritchie Valens would have been even more successful if he had stayed with the Silhouettes, because they seem like a decent enough group, They seem like a decent bunch who can carry a tune. And like, sure, Valens is an imposing presence, but that doesn't mean he doesn't need a little, instrumentals in the back, kind of, just tossing that out there. I think that this movie really makes Valens seem kind of like a tool, like he just goes along with whatever his agent says. His agent is like, "Hey, get in the plane, I know you've had 50 dreams over the past years about you're dying in a plane, but get in the plane. Buddy Holly and the Big Bopper are waiting. It's Chantilly lace time. Why would he get on the plane? For God's sakes, he's gonna die." So there's that, and it's just kind of nonsense, why paint Ritchie Valens as like such a pushover? Again, maybe it's to highlight the contrast between him and his brother, but it still really makes him look just kind of, not that like likable. You kind of even like work, because he's like, come on, don't give up your last name, man. Don't Caucasianize it. And Ritchie's just like, no, I'm gonna do this because then I get money and a lot of, I'll be a big rock star. And it's like, I bet Ritchie Valens could probably have his pick of like any agent in the music industry because he's that good. Like if he turned down this first agent's offer, he'd have more coming along from other music labels because he's flipping Ritchie Valens, for gosh sakes. He's like good at what he does, but whatever. It just kind of makes him seem like stupid. I don't know if that's the angle this was going for, but again, much more interesting character, even though he's like a giant misogynist and he assaults his girlfriend and stuff. Not a very likable character, and you do really simp for Ritchie because he's so sweet and so innocent, so naive. But I think it gives him a decent amount of coverage, and I think if not for this movie, nobody would even know about Ritchie Valens' brother, because he's an oft overlooked figure. Let's be honest here. Nobody's thinking, oh yeah, Ritchie Valens is half sibling who it doesn't get much reported on. So I think this movie definitely does him justice because it is interesting to see the sibling rivalry. Like I said,
The rattlesnake whip.
there's a nice cover here. I like the font for the movie, La Bamba. It looks pretty snazzy. It's a pretty snazzy font. For all things considered, a pretty decent movie. It's got some music by Carlos Santana, obviously another absolute Latin guitar legend, and it's got Los Lobos, like I said. The opening credits sequence is pretty epic. Careening through the desert at a bunch of miles per hour on his motorcycle. It's very completely badass. I'd say it's probably one of the best motorcycle scenes in film history. Up there with Easy Rider and whatnot. Yeah, La Bamba is pretty good. I think it definitely does Ritchie Valens justice. If you're a big Ritchie Valens fan, you'll lean in heavy to this one. Maybe watch this along with the Buddy Holly story if you want a nice double feature. I'd suggest watching them back to back. Maybe watch the Buddy Holly one first because I think it's a little weaker. I think obviously La Bamba is the stronger of the two, but it's interesting to see the same intersecting story of that fatal plane flight, told from two separate angles. That's pretty interesting. So anyway, that's La Bamba. What do I give La Bamba? I give La Bamba 5 stars. That's right.
My dreams of pure rock and roll.
A very decent movie. Definitely does Ritchie Valens justice. Definitely the best movie about Ritchie Valens. Definitely, you can watch it as a fun character study or a fun rock biopic. And obviously La Bamba, just the song in there, it slaps so hard. It's such a gosh dang knee jerker that I just gotta give it 5 stars. I might give it 4 stars. It's not exactly like the most fun movie to watch, but it is worth watching. It's a good biopic. It does Ritchie Valens justice, and the set pieces are on point. Like I said, props and sets are on point. Acting is, for the most part, really excellent. And people obviously did their research in terms of Valens and his life and times. And you got a lot of atmosphere to this movie. You're in 1950s California, and it's the golden age of rock and roll, and tons of sock hops and dancings and goings on, and a bunch of parties and booze and whatnot. But also there's racism in there too, let's not forget. I think this movie handles that very well, and overall just an excellent movie. Check it out if you're interested in rock and roll sensations. And if you're all interested in rock and roll sensations, you can also buy my comic, The Maggots, by writing to Nicholas Cicada, 1424 Columbine Street, number 1, Denver, Colorado 80206. It's literally the only way I make money, so check it out. If you want a full catalog, I suggest The Maggots. Darn good comic. Haven't recommended it in a while, but it's pretty good. If you'd like to see more reviews, then please consider writing to Nicholas Cicada, 1424 Columbine Street, number 1, Denver, Colorado, 80206. I rely entirely, exclusively, 100% on orders for the comics to keep these reviews pumping out. When my products get bought, I'm motivated to make more products. Anywho, that's been a review of the 1987 rock biopic Bamba, and I'll see you in the next installment of VHS Crazy. Sayonara, suckers!